Hey everybody, it's Evan. Welcome to another segment of Prof Recommends. This one's really exciting here on the Prof Noctis channel. We have Clair Obscur Expedition 33, a very new exciting game from Sandfall Interactive. Wade, I understand you didn't get much sleep last night. Before we get into the game, tell us a little bit about how you like to do recommendations, just to tee everybody up.
Oh man, I can't wait to get into this one. So on this channel, we love to do recommendations by really looking at some of the story themes, some of the elements that make this game tick. You can get a lot of reviews from a lot of different places, but we want to really explore who is this game for, why does this game matter, and all of those kind of things. So that's some of the stuff we're going to get into today. With this game particularly, though, before we go any further, we got to give a huge shout out to Sandfall Interactive and Kepler Studios for allowing us to have the opportunity for pre-access to this game. So thank you guys. Really appreciate it, and we're excited to get into it today. Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, Evan.
Yeah, our friends at Sandfall Interactive, they're out of France, which is great, and then the publisher is Kepler Interactive, and they're out of London. So our friends over the pond, we want to say thank you. So as far as the audience of this game, so we like to ask at the very outset, and the way that we do recommendations is, who is this game for? We believe that every game has an audience. So Wade, who is this game for?
Listen, if this video showed up on your For You page or your algorithm, you need to get this game now. Okay, this is for you.
That is hilarious.
In all seriousness, though, like our viewership, you love Final Fantasy games, you love story-driven narrative games, whether it is The Last of Us or Final Fantasy or any of the other RPGs that I've played on this channel. This game is the heart and soul of that kind of gamer. Okay, so if I say it jokingly, but if this showed up for you, then you really need to give this game a look, and you're going to be into this recommendation.
Okay, great. So then let's talk a little bit about story, and then we'll talk about what it looks like to experience the story, because the story is the world that we're going to find ourselves in. The gameplay mechanics and how you kind of live throughout that world is how you experience it. So let's go scene first. So tell us a little bit about the story in this game. Who are we? What's it about? What kind of world do we find ourselves in as you arrive here on Expedition 33?
Yeah, so this game has a fresh narrative, so something that I've never really heard of or have a kind of a parallel for in my frame of reference. But the basic idea is that you are part of an annual expedition that is going to confront this oppressive cycle that's beginning to happen. Those of you that are Final Fantasy fans, you know that I love cycle breaking. I think that's a great narrative thing to think about.
Cycles of Oppression stands out there. This is for you.
This is for you. So the way that this game is, the cycle is that once a year, someone known as the Paintress wakes and paints a number on a monolith, which is this giant rock tower thing. And on that particular day, everyone that is past the age of that number, like the number that shows up on the rock, anyone of that age turns to smoke and fades away.
Whoa.
Like dusting, like Endgame or Infinity War. Okay? Is like they're dusted. Okay? Tom Holland, right there, he's like, I don't want to go. Yeah, that sort of thing. And it's like, you're living in a world where there is no one older than the number that is on that thing, and it's been counting down. And so the oldest people...
How cool is that?
Like in the opening sequence in the trailers, you can see that it's like number 34 at the outset of the game, and it turns to 33, right? And so there's no one older than 33 years old. Isn't that bonkers? What a wild conceit for a game, right?
I have a lot of questions about theme. The first thing that it makes me think of is this. It feels like it's a little bit kind of draft inspired, maybe kind of like a war where, like, at a certain age, people are removed. Like, it's especially from European studios and kind of the way that they've had to deal with war in the 1900s. Was an interesting thing where they just had these lopped off generations where they're missing these big chunks of this certain age demographic because of the history. So I that makes me curious about that theme in general. What are we looking at here?
Let me tell you this. So if a group of people is annihilated or dusted, when the number is repainted every year, the now oldest group, and maybe some others, set out on an expedition to try to end this cycle of the Paintress. And so every year you have new recruits that are going on this journey, sort of thing. And so it's like this collective sort of history making and lesson making. Yeah. Because they know that every expedition up to this point has failed. And so as you, on this year's expedition, Expedition 33, by the way, as you are going through, you're finding rest areas with journal entries and voice logs of previous expeditions that are handing down their lessons to you of like, this is what we learned. And so you'll hear your main character, Gustav, say, this was Expedition 80 something. That was the climbing expedition. That's when they really invented grappling hooks, and that helps us to get to these new places. So they're constantly leaving a legacy for the next one.
Like, so generational progress is a big theme that you like to enjoy and explore in games. So are you okay?
I was geeking out the entire time. I was just like, and it creates this new interest in like, I've got to find all of these logs. I've got to learn what they learned so I can be better at what I'm doing, and make this expedition maybe the one that works. But there's this whole idea of like, this mission is set up for failure. No one has ever succeeded before. And so what does that really mean? What does that really mean? And that's literally the beginning of the game, kind of setting up this world. So like, there are no spoilers in what we're going to talk about today. Let me be very clear. This is just the concept of the game. And I think it's one of the coolest concepts I've ever played.
Yeah, we're just going to be talking about kind of your first impressions since we haven't had a ton of time hands-on with the game. But then also, I think this kind of theme of passive mentorship through sacred texts is something that I think you would probably be interested in here. That, you know, the people who have gone before have experienced things, and so they wrote it down for us. That's pretty religious in the way that it is also practical in the way that you experience it in the story. So far, how does that land with you? Do you feel the connection with the people in the previous expeditions? Does it make you curious about the challenges that they had to endure? And does it give you information about how to navigate your own expedition? Tell us a little bit.
Man, you know that as a religious studies professor, like, I freaking love this stuff. I love the idea of former generations making meaning for their time and their context and passing that down to the next generation or the next expedition, helping them make meaning and then reinterpreting that meaning for their needs in that moment. This is like my bread and butter. And that's what I love about this. Like, it really feels like a lived-in world with a real history that you can easily get caught up on. Just by playing the game, you don't really have to dig for it. This isn't like Dark Souls where you've got to like analyze every item and stuff. It just feels like a lived-in world. And that's no knock to Dark Souls. It's just like they've somehow curated this buffet for you to enjoy. And I'm like, gosh, give me the whole Golden Corral of Expedition 33.
Is that what you could do for your recommendations? This one's the golden
on a Golden Corral scale? My plate is full.
For those of you who may not know what Golden Corral is, it's an all-you-can-eat meat buffet that we have in the United States. So for those of us overseas, and maybe you don't know what a Golden Corral is, just imagine infinite amounts of meat, about any protein you could think of. Not necessarily the best version of it, but there is a lot of it. So what we lack in quality, we make up for in quantity.
Sandfall and Kepler have no idea what a Golden Corral is. I guarantee it.
Well, that's why you need us to Americanize for your audience. That's exactly it. Don't worry. We're here to make obscure food analogies. We got you covered.
Clair Obscur food analogies.
Let's talk about how you experience that story.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the gameplay mechanics. And really my core question is it fun?
It is ridiculously fun.
Okay, why is it fun? What do you do? So, how do you experience this world? Is it turn-based? Is it action? I don't know anything.
Yeah, so there's so much to talk about here. Gameplay-wise, it plays pretty much like a standard modern RPG on the overworld, right? When you're going through and traversing through these areas. There's a world map, which is crazy because it's been years since we've had a world map proper in a modern RPG game. We've gotten them in HD 2D remakes and some other games, but like this is the first what I would call like robust RPG to really bring back that world map aesthetic, where you've got like your guy or your character avatar that's as big as the trees walking around. It's got that kind of vibe from like
an overworld.
An overworld world map sort of thing. So yeah, it's an overworld map, I guess. But then you go into like these regions and zones where it really is like a it's almost Final Fantasy X or Final Fantasy 13 like, in just the built out atmosphere and world that you can explore at that point. So you're climbing, you're grappling and stuff, and it's a lot more active. The thing that really makes this stand apart, in my opinion, is the battle system. It is a turn-based battle system, but that doesn't do it justice. It's a turn-based battle system that is incredibly active. So you've got like timed input attacks and stuff. Almost think like Super Mario RPG. Did you ever play that?
Oh yeah, so it's not stressful, but you can't just look away. It keeps you
can't really look
engaged.
away because there are certain attacks when you're attacked by an enemy, you can either parry or you can dodge. And if you parry, you open yourself up potentially for a counterattack against the enemy. And so you're really having to work on the timing. I die so many times just because I get greedy with counterattacks, and that's been the source of all of my deaths in this game.
Okay, but is it stressful or is it engaging?
It's engaging. It's engaging in an incredibly innovative way, I guess. Sometimes with turn-based games, I love turn-based games. I grew up on turn-based games, but sometimes you can go on autopilot. When I play some of the older games and there's a fast forward feature, that's what I'm doing in battle. I'm just spamming the X button or whatever it is. This game, you just can't do that. Okay, you input and it's like, I hope this is going to work. But then in that counterattack, you're dodging and you're rolling. It's not free movement. So you're like lined up with your party, but it is button presses. It is such a cool way of doing turn-based.
Okay, so it does sound like it is a bit of a next evolution in some of the turn-based gameplay, which is exciting. I think that's been one part of gaming that has been a little slow to kind of come around, and we really like to applaud studios for taking risks to try and drive innovation in that sector of gameplay and take advantage of new technology. So way to go, Sandfall Interactive.
Yeah, it really feels like they learned lessons from games like Persona and Metaphor ReFantazio last year. I mean, this turn-based and the stylistic ways that they're keeping it invigorating, from the camera angles to the UI, and then just the added input attacks and defense mechanisms that are in play. This is a really cool way of doing it. I never get bored in a battle. Which is great.
Now
as a guy that gets bored in a lot of battle systems where you're just spamming buttons and stuff, even in more action-oriented games, this one keeps me on my toes in the best way possible in every battle.
Well, what a great compliment from you. You are very picky about those things. You like to be engaged. You have the patience to endure a lot of things that you don't like in the battle system.
And this is not an enduring system, okay? Like, that's key for me to say. Like, if you follow my channel at all, if you've ever watched me play a game, nobody ever watches me for gameplay because I tolerate it for a good story. I don't have to tolerate it here, and that is such a delight.
Well, that's really, really impressive. So talk to me a little bit about some of the characters. I know that you'd mentioned before that the voice acting had really stood out to you. How does the immersion kind of contribute to your experience with the story when it comes to kind of the voice acting, the music? Talk about what it's like to be in this world.
Yeah, it's important for me to keep everything pretty spoiler-free because this game is meant to be experienced, not heard about. Okay, so like I don't want to spoil a single thing about this, but what I can say is that the cast of characters that is included in this game is as lovable and as enjoyable to be around as some of the best RPGs that I've played.
Wow.
I would stack it up with the ensemble cast of Final Fantasy X. So for those of you that love Final Fantasy X, the story of Yuna and Tidus and all of them, or Titus for those of you that say it like that. I'm a Southern boy. But like this kind of cast has that level of chemistry and believability, and amplified by gorgeous graphics. I mean, I don't know how they did the mocap for this, especially with a 30-person dev team. The level of production value, the mouth movements, the subtle glances that you see in the pupils that are going to other characters as they're looking and just giving these subtle facial cues. I'm like, how did they do this? Like, there are games with extraordinarily massive budgets that can't get this right. And like this game has just caught this subtle nuance of interpersonal relationships so well just by watching. But I got to talk about how the voice acting elevates the entire experience here. Evan,
Okay.
the voice acting in this game is masterful. And like, I don't know if you've taken a look at the cast of this game, but it is stacked. And again, how does a studio come out swinging this hard with their first game? I don't know. Like, it is incredible. Just to let you know of a couple of names that you might recognize. First of all, Charlie Cox from Daredevil, right? Like, he's one of the leads. Then you've got Jennifer English that you may know from Baldur's Gate 3 and Elden Ring. You've got Ben Starr. We love Ben Starr from Final Fantasy 16, of course. And like, he, again, anything that Ben Starr's in, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be amazing. Add in Andy Serkis from Lord of the Rings. And it's like, this is the kind of caliber that you're getting. Shala Nix from Cyberpunk 2077, Phantom Liberty. I mean, you've got a star-studded cast. And like, those are the main characters. But can I say that like the random NPCs are just as believable. They're bringing it on all fronts here. And I'm immersed every time I play.
That's my next question, is how lived in the world feels.
Yeah.
Because what we find a lot of the time is with limited scope and a limited budget, we get really, really tight main areas that really sing and are vibrant and lived in. But when we get into some of the exploration and the side content and some of the NPCs and side characters, things can feel a little less developed just because of the needs of that. When you exist in this world, it feels authentic to you, it sounds like. What are the things when you walk around that make you feel like you're engaged and immersed with the world? Tell us a little bit about some of those side things that really just kind of put it over the top.
That's a great question for this game. So everything I'm going to say is, the best thing that I can say is that everything feels super tight, that you don't ever feel like you're missing out on other things. Now, from like a meta sort of like critique perspective, these are not broad realms or areas or worlds. Okay. In fact, I would compare it again very much to like the Final Fantasy X sized zones and towns.
You load
and
into
like
a
that.
map or zone, and then you explore that zone in great detail, but then you go back to the overworld. So it's not about seamless transition. It's about the idea of this is the big overworld, and this is the specific area that we're going to explore. But it's kind of like hopping in a car or a train, and then you arrive at your destination. You explore the little town when you're traveling.
Yeah. In each area and hub, it is important to note that it's not broad, widespread. It is fairly linear, and that's not a bad thing. It's very focused, is what I would say. It's tight. Yeah. And there are alternate pathways, but you're really essentially moving from point A to point B on the other side of things.
Sure.
Now, there are hub sort of towns and villages that you can visit, but none of that really matters as far as how it feels. You don't really know how big it could have been or how little or whatever it is. Everything feels so tight, well done, and immaculate. Like you're walking around, and I believe that these characters actually live here. They have a sense of shared familiarity with one another. Nothing feels like out of left field. Sometimes you go to an NPC and it's like, oh, my wagon broke down. It's like, oh, there's wagons in this town. everything kind of makes sense. And that to me offers more depth and breadth to this title than even the most sweeping landscape. Sometimes you play an open world game and it feels really empty. Nothing feels empty in this game.
Yeah.
That's what I'd like to say about it.
You do a good job talking about trade-offs often, in that we as enjoyers of the games, because that's what we are. You and I are enjoyers of video games.
Yeah,
we don't
we're
make
not
them,
critics.
We don't
let me
write
say.
them. We're not really critics. I mean, like, we have our own opinions.
We have opinions.
But that's not the point. Our point is that we want to celebrate what it is, and we want to help people find the audience that works for them. So, when it comes to trade-offs, we like to talk about how open world and the tight story are kind of your two ends of the spectrum. So there's odds are you're going to have some trade-offs for really rich built-out zones or like a really, really tight story. And so it's really difficult with the resourcing that studios have to make a giant open world, fully explorable game, but then also have all the level of detail that kind of captivates and curates the player experience. Because if the way that you have to experience the story is with some linearity, where you have to experience it, you're going to follow the journals, there's kind of more of a curated story rather than one that you kind of explore and uncover, you're going to have a little less freedom to make sure that you don't get frustrated and stay on the right path. Where do they land on that here? What is that player experience going to be? If you're looking for like a Skyrim open world, are you going to, that's not what you're looking for here, right? So tell us a little bit about a game that you've played that you would compare the detail but then the explorability to. Like, put us in the right spot here.
That's a great question. I know I keep saying it, but this game is so reminiscent of the first 10 Final Fantasies, but specifically like 8, 9, and 10. That's what I would say. And 10 is probably the one that I would say it's most similar to. But then you've got an overworld map like Final Fantasy 9. 10 did not have that.
Yeah.
So
Tiny
for
Tina's
fans
Wonderland.
of those two, go ahead. What?
Tiny Tina's Wonderland was the new Borderlands expansion that came out, and it was a Dungeons and Dragons RPG themed take on Borderlands. And so you had an overworld where you had a character with like a chibi head where you walked around to different things, and then when you entered into a zone, that instanced you into a map. So you could go into different instances, but you did walk around in an overworld. That's probably the last modern game, most recently that I played, that I thought did a really good job capturing the kind of overworld RPG aesthetic, but then loading you into the zone. Now, obviously, the gameplay of Borderlands is going to be a first-person shooter, very different. But why you would need to run around an overworld and then instance into a more detailed zone for technical limitations and for storytelling purposes makes sense here. So I think it's good to just set everyone's expectations there.
Yeah, one of my favorite games of all time, Final Fantasy 15, is... the critique is that they really tried to make this huge open world, but there wasn't a lot to do. And so there's a trade-off between this open world exploration and the linear storytelling. There's always a trade-off there. So here, there's a great story that's being told. And I applaud these devs for not sacrificing that for... kind of more exploration and all that kind of stuff. So, like, for me, it works because I am a story guy. Now, if you are if you're looking for Breath of the Wild here, that this is not it. There are exploration elements and secrets to uncover, but it's really not about that. This is a story that these devs felt was worth being told in a very specific way. And we're going to lead you through this. And you're going to have some options and agency in here, especially in some dialogue trees. But ultimately, this is a story for you to experience.
That being said, I guess my biggest question is what are some of the themes that folks could expect to explore? And the second part, I'd love for you to answer in tandem. What does this game make you feel so far?
Okay, I'm going to grab my journal, okay?
Everybody, this is a journal-grabbing moment.
Here's, at the end of my playthrough last night, and again, at time of this recording, let me say I have not rolled credits, but I felt it was important enough for me to kind of get these first impressions out for release day that I wanted to share some of this stuff. And you're going to see more content and all that stuff. But at the end of my playthrough last night, these are the questions that I wrote down. If you had 1 year left, what would you do with it? If you knew the time of your end, how would you spend your remainder? And those two questions really... catalyze so much of the ways that I look at these characters, because each one is grappling with their impending mortality. And you got to think to yourself, like, every year that you are living in this world. Not only are you a year closer to your end, but the deadline and destination point is getting closer as well. You are both moving toward one another, and you know essentially the date of your deadline.
Let me just interrupt you here. Is it a bummer?
No.
Okay. Because that sounded like a bummer.
Well, yeah,
it's not a bummer.
It does. It does. So let me qualify that a little bit.
It's serious, but it's not a bummer.
As you are going through one of the very first areas, you talk to people that are on different ends of this spectrum.
Oh, wow.
Like, some have, like, kind of accepted fate. It's like, this is what it is.
Yeah.
Others are like, we're going to fight fate. We're going to break this cycle. I'm joining the expedition to go and take on the cycle to try to end it and build a better future for others. But then you have others that are just like, there's no point. And so it really does reflect real life in that respect. And that's something that I really saw. It gave me a lens to kind of interpret actual life, and at different points in my own life. When have I felt most hopeful, most resistant, and most resigned? And those three things are really great. And even your primary characters, even though they are on this quest, they go through that roller coaster of emotions. And so what this game does so beautifully is it plays with this idea of mortality and purpose while you still have time. And I think that is what really resonated with me, or resonates with me so far.
It sounds like the kind of personality of the characters gives a lot of texture to the story and themes. It's what makes them feel real and grippy and like they exist and not just some kind of far off model. But I imagine that there's some humor involved and there's some like serious. So the pacing is something that I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about. What is it like? Does this game compel you to play it more? And how is the pacing?
First time I played it, I didn't put it down for 10 hours. Okay, so like I was
Brother,
locked in.
Are you okay?
I was locked in. I was like, I don't want to stop. I don't want to go to the bathroom. I don't want to like
screen feeding you. Like, did you put in a tube?
It's like that World of Warcraft South Park episode where you're just like, Mom. That's what this game does, man. It's like, and when you get game over, it's like, no, I can go back. I can do better. Like, I'm going to get that parry.
Obscur, Expedition 33.
Yeah. So, I mean, it really begs you to play more. And I find it so compelling. And I think that the narrative is so tight. There was no space for me to put down the controller.
Wow.
I was like, and you know me, like I camp in game, I sleep in life.
Yeah.
I did not for this game. And that's like a huge compliment because I was like, I'm not going to bed now. I got to keep playing. This is too good.
Well, it sounds like you're having a great time with it, and I think that if you've made it to this point in our little interview segment, then it sounds like you'll probably have a good time with it as well. Let's kind of wrap up here with some parting words and anything that you would want people to know as we kind of close out.
There are a couple of just like quick bits that we haven't really talked about. The music is stunning. Like, it's so kind of them to put a game out and include it with a soundtrack this good, because like you should just buy the soundtrack. It's so good. And every piece of music in this game feels refreshing and new. Something that I haven't really heard in other games. And that's just really cool. It doesn't sound like your standard fantasy fare. Also, this isn't your standard fantasy setting. There are wild regions, like you're kind of like in this underwater, I think it's called Flying Waters or something like that, where it's like you're at the bottom of the ocean and there's like whales swimming over you and stuff, but you're not underwater.
Dude, what?
It's wild, right? And so it's so imaginative. You usually think of the traditional biomes. You got grasslands, you got snowlands, you got marshlands, all that kind of stuff. Here, it's like, no, we're going to give you some of the trippiest, coolest things ever, and it's going to be real believable.
Very
the
cool.
entire aesthetic feels like an oil painting, which goes to the name of the game itself, right? Clair Obscur or chiaroscuro, which means clear or light, and obscuro, dark, right? And so it's a form of painting that juxtaposes extraordinary contrast between light and dark to evoke depth. That is the key of this game. it's the juxtaposition of the light and the dark of life to give the impression of depth. And how deep do the characters go? How deep does the world go? And how do you notice that more as the light and the darkness dance and mingle? That is the thing that I keep coming back to, and it's a masterful work of art. I would say that's it. It's artistic gaming at its best.
I'm so glad it exists. I can't wait to watch you stream it and play it more. Are you going to be putting this on stream here in the next few weeks? Tell us about your plans to kind of preview the game some more and how folks can engage more with your thoughts outside of your first impressions.
Certainly. We're going to be giving you some Clair Obscur Expedition 33 content, everything from some live streams that are coming very, very soon, depending on the release of this video. And we are also going to be putting out some video essays because this game is lore dense, and I'm excited to get into specifics. Can't really for this spoiler-free impression video. But you can expect that sort of thing. It has the depth and the staying power of some of my favorite games. Somebody on Twitter or social media asked me earlier today, is it good or is it Final Fantasy, let me make a lecture out of this good? And it is the latter. It is let me make a lecture out of this good.
Well, say a quick thank you and give some compliments to Sandfall Interactive and our friends at Kepler Interactive here across the pond here in parting, and leave us with some good parting words here.
Yeah,
Thanks
I cannot thank Sandfall and Kepler more than I have. Like it is just such an honor to have received this game for pre-access, and I am excited for this game to get into the hands of people. You're going to love this game. Do not sleep on it. And also, it's $50 in this world of gaming,
so consumer
game
friendly.
The fact that there's a team of 30 individual staff members that created a game that they put out for $50, and it is in contention for one of the best games of the year. That's stunning. So go and support them. Like it's so good.
That deserves to be rewarded. In a world of creeping costs, the fact that they made the decisions that allowed them to release this game for $50 with a high amount of story and that level of creativity, that's a low point of entry. Absolutely. Way to go. Way to go. We love studios that are consumer friendly. Thank you for taking a risk.
Absolutely.
And please, if this game's in your wheelhouse and they put it out for $50 and it's not that much of a difference to you, we have got to start voting with our wallets here, people. Please support this game if this is in your wheelhouse. Don't wait for a sale if they put it out for $50. Just go get it. This is the kind of thing when we have studios, Ivan's going on a soapbox, I get one. When we have studios that take the time to put out thoughtful games like this and they release it at an accessible price point for us and it's in a niche market, the only way that we show everyone that these are the kind of games and these are the kind of experiences that we want to have is if you actually go and buy them.
Go buy it. Yes.
Go buy the game if you want to see more of this. We live in a world that the economics drive almost every single artistic and gaming decision. So we have a responsibility to support people who put stuff like this out. So if you're the kind of person that gets mad when they release a new Call of Duty every year for $110, then you need to go out and support studios that are doing this, because that's how you tell the big guys that this is what we want. That's me.
Evan,
thanks, everybody.
Evan gave a lecture. It was so good. No, absolutely. Terrific game. I cannot recommend it enough, and I am going to go platinum this game now. So
thanks for the time.
We'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.
Thanks to Sandfall Interactive and Kepler Interactive for the preview copy of the game. Thanks to Husky by the Geek for our theme music. Thanks to Nick Smith for our graphics. But as always, most of all, thanks to you. This program is brought to you by viewers like you, and we really appreciate you taking the time to listen to us and listen to our approach to playing games and having a good time. We hope that everything else is going great in your world, and we so look forward to seeing you on our next episode. Bye-bye.